The block was one of the highlights of Fortnite Chapter 1 and was generally very well received by both the casual and competitive community, but was this a classic case of Chapter 1 nostalgia? All the way back in Season 7, life was simple. A new entire quarter of the map had changed and introduced the snow biome to the world of Fortnite. The map felt fresh, exciting, and new to play. We had just lost my favourite drop spot at the time of Greasy Grove, but personally it was a loss I was willing to accept, as for me, Polar Peak became a new home. Look, I sucked, I ain't landed till it, okay, fight me. As if losing my home wasn't bad enough, across the map 1 week later, a large concrete square of nothing landed on my backup home of Risky Reels, reducing it to atoms. There were a lot of people who were upset at the fact that Risky Reels were gone, except obviously the people who really couldn't do that challenge where you had to open a certain amount of chests. I'm sure they were really happy.
Look at the whole lobby. The whole lobby. What's the point? What is the point of landing, bro? Look at it. Look at, he already got it.
Especially since in its place was absolutely nothing. It was a concrete square which had zero loot on it altogether. However, if you'd watched the announcement at the Game Awards in 2018 with the Donald Mustard, he had actually told everyone exactly what the block was going to be. And it was going to be a specific POI that was going to highlight the creative builds that the community had made and be implemented into the game, rotating on a weekly or per patch basis. Despite it being a block of absolutely nothing initially, after 11 days of this, the first creative block was introduced, Grimy Green's Factory, made by Cansitak. Sorry if I said that name wrong. From that point on, almost weekly, different creators from all over the world were getting the block creations put into the game for all to enjoy. Some of the posts on the Fortnite Reddit of the creators thanking Epic Games and the community are some of the highest upvoted posts on the entire subreddit, showing that there was obviously a lot of appreciation going on from the entire community. There was a huge variety of maps that were implemented. Some were absolutely fantastic and felt like renditions of other POIs in the game at the time, fitting the balance of the map very, very well. These just felt very natural. And others, well, they had bounce pads, or they were a big metal turtle. We can't also forget the Looming Llama, as it was called, which, you know, this isn't a llama. I have very fond memories of dropping in Mysterious Markets, as it was called, in the Explorer Solo and Duo pop-up cups back in version 7.10, and I'll talk about these tournaments specifically in another video, but this was a drop spot that just felt right for me at the time. The flow of it was great, and honestly it fit the Fortnite vibe very well. In these cups, I found one of the first issues with the block, however, which was the increased harvesting rate. Now this definitely wasn't intentional, as it was removed a few weeks later, but during the very early versions of the blocks, there was actually a 1.5 times pickaxe damage multiplier to structures, meaning that a regular pickaxe swing was going to do 75 damage rather than the normal 50. This meant that you get incredibly fast materials from the block. Remember that a lot of the block was constructed of hard materials anyway, so this made fast harvesting in these spots very, very quick. Once this bug was fixed, there was still a huge amount of materials in large amount in the blocks anyway, given that it was made up entirely of creative pieces. In Season 7's blocks, the loot was either 4 chests or 40. There seemed to be no balance in between and no standard set for the amount of loot, meaning that some of these drops were really, really bad to land at and fight from, and some were incredibly strong, which back then was part of the fun. I can't imagine how people would cry about that right now though if that was put back in the game with no standard loot. Honestly, I don't think that was necessarily an issue for competitive, given it was balanced having to learn a new POI every week, having uncertainty if the spot was even going to have enough loot to be worth landing at. So there definitely was a risk to reward with this sort of POI, and let's be real, competitive in early Season 7 was still very, very primitive. However, Season 8 saw some big changes to the block. Since the season yet again brought with it another new biome, which was the jungle biome in the northeast corner of the map, rather than obliterating the block similarly to Risky Reels, RIP, they moved it over to the northwest corner of the map. This time, however, flattening the motel instead, a spot that players quite literally never landed at, but definitely complained when it was gone. In Season 8, there was definitely a lesson learned about capitalization of specific words.
So we're just going to be going and checking it out. It is Mrs. Lick Willies. And so it looks like there's a, wait, Mr. Slick Willies. All right, that makes a little bit more sense.
From this season onwards, the block was a lot more consistent with the amount of loot that it had. And by that, I mean a lot. The sheer chests and floor spawn numbers meant that the block was one of the best POIs to drop at in nearly every single iteration. Alongside the block was also a block chest, which was guaranteed gold weapon along with its respective ammo, 2 different consumables, and 30 materials. Now, not only was it incredibly strong for weapons, the ammo you got from this drop was unmatched. In a lot of the variations of the block, you could place floors to destroy large chunk of the drop, in the process opening a lot of ammo crates, meaning you didn't even have to search the crates yourself. Remember that it was also the old ammo cap as well, being 999 for AR ammo, meaning that the players landed at the block had a huge potential to spam in a lot of team game modes, which became very prevalent in Season X FNCS. I wish I had a definitive answer to quantify the loot in the block in comparison to other POIs at the time, but I don't have a map that shows it exactly from every single season. But let's just look at Tfu's World Cup loot coming out of here in the World Cup solos. Now, if you notice, in every single one of these, from games 1, 2, 3, and 4, he had a gold weapon, which was from that block chest, and he also had some form of mobility throughout this too. Now, these screenshots are from different points throughout the individual games, but you can just see generally the quality of the loot that he got was incredibly good. Outside of Game 6, I have honestly no idea how this happened. The block was a POI that was loved by all, but it also just felt very Fortnite. It was wacky, fun, strong, and interesting all at the same time. The frequent changes caused for an interesting gameplay dynamics, and there was many negatives to dropping at a powerful spot like this, like the fact that you're going to have to replan a drop map each week. You'd have to relearn the new looting paths, how to learn how to fight there, and the loot and metal may not even be good in some versions of it either. To this day, there are still players who post on Reddit looking for the return of the block, and hey, as you all know, I'm down for replacing Coral Castle with it. Let's do it. The replies on these posts are also generally very positive as well, with minimal negative responses to the drop spot, showing that this spot truly was beloved by players of nearly all skill levels, in casual and also in competitive, and it seems like it would make a fitting return to the game. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. Peace.